on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gordoski. So glad to be back with you all again for another look at the news from a perspective that is timeless, based on principles, not tribalism. The FEC chairman, let's see what he's got to say. Tried to pull it up, but I don't know if the link just got blocked or something here. Welcome to the Wild West of media, where you've got this failing, dying, pathetic, disgusting corporate press and its tentacles into the internet with the nanny state wannabes, the corporate fascists, and their busybody love of war, banks, giant corporate handouts. That's what the Democratic Party is. The neo-libs is what we're going to call them. These folks have nothing to do with progressivism. They have everything to do with expanding a reactionary entrenchment of big corporations in alliance with giant, unaccountable government agencies. Real progressives have been marginalized from the Democratic Party. They've been systematically targeted and silenced. They've been rigged in their elections. And so we must now continue to develop an alliance between those who are true believers in progressive ideology in the good sense of the word, not in the establishment sense, but in the good sense of the liberal tradition, in its skepticism of centralized power structures, and reject neoliberalism. It means we have to be able to work together. We have to be able to work across the conventional divides that are supposed to be binding for us and actually make common cause with folks. We see that happening with honest brokers like Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi. We see that with, folks like Oliver Stone, the film director, producer, who is honest about the lies of the Russian investigation and the surveillance state. He's been honest about our globalist wars. We have to be able to build alliances with these folks because this is the Wild West. This is the beginning of a new cultural moment. The establishment calls it the Great Reset. That's their little brand they're using. Did you see the video? I don't know if you saw that online. You got to check it out, of grandma and grandpa having to hug their grandchildren through a plastic bag. You know that show Black Mirror? I mean, this is very, very disturbing to see. This is the kind of world that these neo-libs, these corporate fascists that are represented by the dying old media in its outposts in the internet, Facebook, the liars that you go to PolitiFact, you think this is such a trap for low information people. Go to PolitiFact.com, and everything you see there is a DNC PR firm attack against a Republican or a conservative or an independent or a free thinker on the left. And yet low information people, they get hoodwinked by the brand. It says PolitiFact, it's a fact checker. Ooh, and they just get sucked in. Boom. They're just owned by that brand. You try to say, hey, look, my friend, I know that they've got a little toggle, and you see it says true and false, and you think, oh, that means they're transcendent. And I'm sorry, but these people lack basic discernment practices for advertising from giant corporations. Just because someone says they're one thing doesn't make them that thing. But there are a lot of low information folks in this society who just seem to lack the discernment to be able to say, hey, I have to turn all this stuff off. Just because they say they're a fact checker doesn't mean they're dealing with facts, doesn't mean they're transcendent. Just because they say they're the media doesn't mean they know they're presenting reality as it is. There are too many red flags about this election for the media to be in lockstep as the way they are in saying there's nothing to see here. There's just too many egregious collections of red flags, one after another, to just sit there and say, oh, yeah, they're right. There's nothing here. And I think the Biden dupes that voted for this guy, I think they know that. A lot of them do intuitively. And I think that's why their celebrations have been hollow and muted. They know that they made a deal with the devil. They made a deal with a guy who's been in power for 50 years and has no mental fitness to be able to do anything independent of the deep bureaucracy that wants wars and bailouts for banks and horrible surveillance and control of our food and our environment and our everything. And I think they know that they've totally embraced reactionary politics and Luddite ideas for technology. And I think that's why their celebrations were muted. And the atmosphere just doesn't feel like they're happy or satisfied. Of course, that a lot of it has to do with the fact that, well, for one, the victory over Trump, if it is a real victory, is very, very tiny margins. And they were told for a lot by a lying media that's a bunch of PR firms for their party that they were going to get a blowout. And they wanted that blowout. They wanted that epic defeat of their boogeyman. But there's another side, which is they say they wanted the defeat, but I think they actually wanted him to stay. And I've said that before. There's a lot of folks on the left that don't know how to bind themselves together outside of having a common scapegoat to wake up in the morning and attack. That's what keeps them together. Have you seen the way they talk, the intersectional racist ideology when they talk to each other? You have one group attacking the Native Americans saying, you guys enslaved African Americans, and the Native Americans say, no, you guys did this to us, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. They can't agree on who is the top of their victim Olympics collectivist ideology. So what binds all that internecine conflict together is a believable and effective and all-powerful godlike scapegoat. And I think a lot of them are waking up to the reality that, oh, my goodness, I can't bear the thought that the Grinch will not be here, that I can measure myself in relation to the other, right? They can say, hey, I don't agree with you on your version of collectivist violent political thought, but together, we're bound together by comparing ourselves. Hey, look, we don't talk like Donald Trump. We don't use those crude languages. We bomb people all over the world, but we don't use crude language like he does, so that makes us self-righteous. They love that. That's what they live and breathe for. And I think a lot of them are waking up to the reality that they don't want it to end. They like having that common scapegoat to rally around and feel like they're self-righteous in their fight against them. They like that. They don't want it to end, really. They say they want it, but just because someone says something doesn't mean they actually believe what they're saying they want. A lot of people say stuff, but they don't actually believe what they say. They say stuff because they hear other people deemed by the TV media and its allies in the digital world. They are deemed to be cool and they want to fit in with the cool crowd, so they say what is fashionable. If you want to be considered important or cool, you have to say certain words. If you want to be treated like you're a loser or bad or evil or immoral or not cool, not fashionable, just go against the TV party and you'll see what happens real quick. And a lot of the folks who say they wanted Trump out really didn't want him out. They actually like having him there. It makes them feel bound together with a common cause. It's kind of like a role playing or something. Let's see if we have this clip here. I want to play this clip from it's a clip from the FEC chairman. The chairman of the Federal Election Commission says he believes, quote, there's voter fraud taking place and calls this election, quote, illegitimate. This is interesting. Let's see if we have this clip.
On this election.
I do believe that there's voter fraud taking place in these places. Otherwise, they would allow the observers to go in. When you have claims of, 10,000 people who don't live in the state of Nevada having voted in Nevada, you have the video showing where people are, they're either duplicating a spoiled ballot right there, or they're in the process of just marking a ballot that came in blank for a voter. That's a process that needs to be observed by election observers. State law allows those observers to be in there. And if they're not, then the law is not being followed, making this an illegitimate election.
All right, let's go back to that video if we can. The video we're watching there, if he's filling out the ballot on the top right there, so this would be fraud on this election.
So it's interesting to see that there's a bifurcation of reality taking place once again. Remember in 2016, all the same hack media outlets were trying to convince the low information, gullible dupes that watch their programs, NPR, BuzzFeed, Politico, all the hack organizations that are all PR firms for corporations, but they market themselves as news organizations. You see, that's all they're doing. They are marketing themselves as a news organization. That is the veneer. The reality is they are a PR firm, public relations. They are there to make you like and make you feel a certain way for the party and the candidates that represent the corporate interests that they are owned by. That's it. That's all they're there for. They are a PR firm enterprise. That's it. They're not news organizations. But you have to have a basic modicum of discernment and wisdom to be able to understand that. And unfortunately, millions of people who took their government school indoctrination too seriously, apparently, and took their nihilistic pop culture indoctrination too seriously, and took the TV too seriously, and took their orders too seriously, like lemmings off a cliff, they lack the discernment to be able to see what's obvious and right in front of our eyes, which is that the media is a collection of organizations that are PR firms for particular policies that benefit the government agencies that they are working for and working in connection with, and the corporations that benefit from those policies. They want the dark winter of forced lockdowns. They want that kind of garbage. They want fake green energy policies with wind farms and solar panels. They will ignore low temperature nuclear energy and the real solutions for pollution. They will ignore that, and they will elevate garbage, fake pseudoscience trash. They will ignore real paradigm shifting breakthroughs taking place for cancer and other things, and they will push big pharma garbage that requires government health care to pay for. They do everything they can to get you to submit and to heal your mind, your whole heart, your whole soul, your whole body to big pharma, big banks, big war. That's what they're there for, okay? Barack Obama, Twitter tells you today, says he is not ready to abandon the possibility of America in his upcoming memoir. It's called A Promised Land. Barack Obama is a TV character. Barack Obama is a TV character. He is there to just be a symbol that hides the real violence and the real degradation of our families' lives, our freedoms, our ability to have safe, clean air. That's what he's there for. He's there to be a symbol that distracts you with rhetoric. He doesn't really believe in what he says. The last memoir, he said, openly admitted that he was doing cocaine. Meanwhile, he was elected to president. Later on, he was elected to president. And he did nothing to pardon Alice Marie Johnson, who didn't even do cocaine. This is a grandmother who requested petition over and over and over again for an egregious sentence for a first-time nonviolent crime, didn't even do drugs like Barack Obama admitted to, and he didn't have the coward or the audacity of, he didn't have the courage or the audacity of hope to do anything for this woman because he's a chicken. He's a chicken that's owned by corporations, but he's got a great rhetoric ability. He's good at being an actor, just like an actor can make you cry and make you do stupid stuff. That's all the theatrics of politics is. And he is a good little actor. He's a good little actor that makes you feel like he really, truly cares. Meanwhile, he's drone striking U.S. citizens and their children overseas. Teenagers didn't even do anything wrong. They're just in the wrong place, the wrong time. And he had Brennan do nasty, terrible drone strikes. This is a man who puts children in dog cages and has enough sycophantic trash PR firm media outlets covering his tail that they project that onto Donald Trump. And to this day, low information bigots still believe that fantasy when it's an absolute lie. So why would you believe their fantasy that they're trying to foist on you now, that there is nothing whatsoever to see about any of the bizarre election patterns that we have seen in this past election? I am not making any conclusion. What I am telling you is anybody with wisdom would know that when 100% of media outlets, including the fake conservative media outlet Fox News, which has been a fake outlet for a long time, but conservatives, Republicans are just now waking up to this. That's fine. Better late than never. That when they're all saying one thing, and you see all of these Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, they all stop the counts at the same time, basically, after Arizona is called by this fake Republican network. You were supposed to believe that? Oh, they all just randomly decided to stop the count so they could estimate how many they needed and then wake up in the middle of 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. when reports of affidavits and witnesses of people bussing in ballots and driving in vans with Biden and Harris on. I mean, this is a mess. This is third world dictator garbage, which the State Department has been foisting on countries all over the world. So now it's coming home to roost, or at least you're starting to see it. Maybe it's been happening for some time here. We'll be back in just a moment with more on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania Catania personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski, your host. Looking at these stories here coming in. Pennsylvania court blocks counting of some mail-in ballots. This is from News Yahoo. Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court on Thursday barred county election officials from counting mail-in and absentee ballots in which voters provided missing information after November 9. Those ballots were ordered last week to be separated until the Commonwealth Court determined the validity of the votes. The Commonwealth Court found Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar lacked the authority to extend the deadline to November 12th from November 9th, by which voters could provide missing information to validate their ballot. The case was brought by U.S. President Donald Trump's campaign and the Republican National Committee. So this is just the beginning of what could be a very drawn-out process, but don't ask that from the TV media. They just tell you that he is assaulting. Oh, Donald Trump, they'll say, is assaulting the democracy. Meanwhile, they covered Al Gore's lying, snake self the whole way in 2000 when he was complaining about the illegitimacy of the Florida call, when he was saying that he won. They said he won. They said he was the projected winner. And they covered for him, and they made him look like he was the real victim. It was all a horrible, corrupt situation. They did everything they could for that joker because he plays ball. He's a designated good guy in their little TV charade. So they got to make him the villain. They had to make him to look good. But Donald Trump is their designated villain. So, of course, anything he says, they hate. I mean, just to give you an example of it, you just look at the way they responded to the thought that he is going to potentially have his way with ending the Afghan war as he promised by Christmas. In the article on Politico, talking about the new appointments of Colonel Doug McGregor, who's been on this program, they referred to him putting in his allies to replace Mark Esper, the war hawk. They said that's, quote, ramming through his agenda, unquote. You notice they don't use such violent language to describe the actual horrible war policy of a 19-year war in Afghanistan. You see how the media is? These are liars. They are not humanitarians. They're cheerleaders for war, for a 19-year war. And they use violent language to talk about a man trying to end the war. They never use that violent language to talk about the latest drone strike, especially when it's Barack Obama and Biden doing it. What a mess. These people are such a joke. Turn them off. Their days are over.
There is all kinds of lunacy going on. Yeah.
It makes me sick.
It's the Chris Plante Show.
This has just got me going off.
And the left is waging war against the police in the United States. Telling it like it is.
You should be thanked profusely for getting to the point. You're a voice.
The massive task of counting all the early and provisional ballots in the pandemic continues in some undecided states. The Trump campaign moving ahead with lawsuits. President-elect Joe Biden also moving forward, naming Ron Klain his chief of staff. He served when he was VP. ABC's political director Rick Klein says it's McClain is well liked on both sides of the aisle.
The signal from this first announced appointment is Joe Biden wants to return to normalcy. Very traditional choice for chief of staff. He actually had the job when Biden was vice president. He also headed up the Ebola task force at the White House. So he's got some firsthand experience with dealing with healthcare crises. He's known as a very steady, calm leader, not a huge ego, a lot of respect among Democrats as well as Republicans, and a lot of progressives actually like Ron Klain and think he is someone they can work with.
Across the country, coronavirus cases spiking more and more each day. In the week of new cases, they've topped 100,000 daily for the past 8 days. Deaths are also on the rise, topping more than 1,000 a day. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
I'm David Gronowski, your host. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice, the program where we get things done neighbor to neighbor because we cut through noise and confusion with principles, with history as our guide, with ethics in mind. And that's why we have a different tone than the media. As I was saying before our short news break here, we see the Politico hack PR firm for the establishment of war. They said Trump's new Pentagon sets up clash over Afghanistan pullout. And this neo-lib PR firm called Politico describes Trump trying to end this awful 19-year war as, quote, ramming through his agenda. And it's like, what kind of a nasty person, so devoid of decency, uses more violent language to describe ending a war than these liars use to cover the war when they cover it at all. What about the drones, the bombs, the shootings inflicted on Afghanis for 19 years and counting? So don't let these people lecture you. Lecture you about what it means to be socially just or sensitive to the plight of the vulnerable. Look what they actually do. They reveal their true colors when it really counts. They'll make a big deal and act like they're behind justice for George Floyd or whatever, right? The story is that they could get power from. But when it comes down to reality, they do not really care about stopping real victims from real oppression like occupation going on 19 years. So what are you going to do about that? Are you going to continue to watch those outlets and make those the fulcrum of your reality? I know we're turning them off, rapidly so. Fox News ratings are plummeting. Republicans just figured out what Ron Paul fans realized about Fox News back in 2007. That Fox News is not your friend if you really care about liberty and peace. And they were holding their nose, apparently, the Murdoch family, because they knew that Donald Trump was popular with their audience. But they didn't like his message about ending wars. They didn't like that. And so they tolerated it until they could do their little Judas move on election night and try to become a totally different thing, reborn in the wake of the election night. You saw that with Neil Cavuto pulling away from their description of fraud. And it's so fake. It's like watching pro wrestling scripts or something. You know, it's like, oh, I can't let you see this. Oh, my goodness. I'm sure Neil Cavuto covered all of Al Gore's allegations of fraud before there was a drop of evidence. If he was on air or whoever was there. You know, they preen and they lie and they try to and they always try to ranch, you know, to ratchet up their moves. So they're like, oh look, even Fox News is saying all this and pulling away. It's a consensus, you know. They try to gaslight people that way, make you feel like, oh my goodness, the walls are closing in. I can't question this election with ballots coming in the middle of the night in vans. I can't question this. I can't have whistleblowers having, you know, whistleblowers intimidated on audio tape. We heard it by federal agents with the U.S. Postal Service whistleblower. Nothing to see here, citizen. Shut your mouth. Vote for these little Mickey Mouse characters like Biden and Obama, who act like they care about little people, but they don't. They pulverize little people. They ram through bombs on little people. That's all they do. They have nothing for the concerns of our jobs, our freedoms. They're going to add more regulations to tighten their grip onto competition. Look at what they've done with their COVID political disaster that Trump went along with too much, but eventually seemed to back down from it. Look what they did. They choked the life out of so much of the retail industry in mom and pop stores, and they funneled them all to Walmart and Amazon. You think that's what they're going to try to reverse? Of course not. They want everybody at one or two stores, you know, one or two parties, you know, it's all designated little left, right, little things. And you're not allowed to have diversity. You're not allowed to have a competition. If you want to create clean energy too cheap to meet, or try it and watch these so-called people who are worried about the climate melting down any minute, and watch how they'll stop you every step of the way from producing something like low temperature energy, nuclear energy, what they call LENR, or nuclear fusion. Watch how they'll try to stop that with every regulatory hurdle in their imagination. They do not care about the climate. They do not care about pollution. They care about power. They care about greed and envy. They want to take from others, the people at the top of these corporations and government bureaucrats. Now, some of the people on the lower level and mid-level, maybe they're well-meaning. Maybe they really believe in some kind of fantasy religion. That's what religion's for, fantasy, to justify sacrificing some for the greater good. And this religion of state worship is very much enthralled to a lot of folks. But it takes a kind of suspension of disbelief that's similar to watching a movie. At some point, you have to understand that they're willingly deluding themselves. Just like when you go into a movie, you kind of forget that you're watching a movie so you can get drawn into the story, get drawn into the characters, and you suspend your disbelief. It's a kind of social human phenomena that we do in order to kind of let go of ourselves and get drawn into a fantasy that provides catharsis and meaning and feelings, and we get to become one with the characters vicariously, right? We feel them when they're scared and when they're triumphant and when they're, you know, destitute. And we go through those emotions if it's a well-crafted film, and you get the suspension of disbelief that makes it happen, right? And that's what folks are doing when they suspend their disbelief, when 100% of the major TV garbage media outlets, PR firms that they are for the DNC, PR firms more importantly for war, and the exploitation of your labor for people that don't own you but act like they do, okay? That's what they're PR firms for. And what they're trying to do is get you stuck in that political suspension of disbelief, to get you on that mental poverty place where you're sitting there and you're saying, I believe it. How many of those clowns on social media were saying, I'm so happy that Biden is giving a soothing speech. I feel good, soothing speech. Meanwhile, the Joker, he didn't write it, of course, right? He doesn't write his statement, doesn't say anything, but this Joker is talking about doing intervention into Syria, which would create a chaos and more bloodshed, more suffering, more unleashing of Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra and ISIS-type factions in that place. It would sow so much chaos and trouble and pain and suffering for people of color, by the way, which the left acts like they own that brand. We own the brand of people of color. Nobody is allowed to think about people of color unless we tell you what to think about them, and they're not allowed to think And we own them. That's our brand. We own it. We trademarked it. We raise money off of the term people of color, and we do nothing but bomb and hurt people of color. That's what the DNC does. A disgusting trash organization for war and surveillance and exploitation of people's privacy and welfare for giant corporations. The outsourcing of our jobs through rigged trade deals that act like they're free trade, act like they're free market, but they're nothing at all related to that. They lock up people if they create anything different from the FDA-approved cartel Big Pharma. And you think Big Pharma doesn't have their back? What do you think they did when Pfizer did that whole thing? Trump played along with their game too much. That's why they had more power over him than they should have. He played their game. Oh yeah, we're going to get these vaccines out. Pfizer says, yeah, we're going to wait till the week after. Even though you've been pushing our brand in the debates, you've been pushing us, giving us all this PR approval. We don't need you. We've back in the team that's going to take us to where we really want to go. You're the off-brand team, Trump. You're not the official team. You're the team that the Harlem Globetrotters play against. You're designed to lose, Trump. You're the villain. You're the villain character. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what Pfizer is saying to Trump. You're not the official party. You're the official losers. You represent Christianity and evangelicals and rednecks and all the stuff that we're supposed to hate. That's our scapegoat party. We can't let you get credit for our little vaccine. So we're going to wait till after you get your little media loss. We're going to come out and we're only going to talk to the Biden. See, and Trump just has, from my perspective, he's a little bit too naive about the state. You know, he's just, working with, why did he have John Bolton and all these clowns coming into his administration? Very naive. But he is not in on their little clique, because otherwise they wouldn't be throwing out all of these things in unison to try to destroy the guy. So he's not part of that clique, but he's also not, I guess, wise enough to understand. I mean, maybe he is now. Who knows what he's learning now, but doesn't seem to have the discernment. For the last 40 years, he allowed his entire administration to be run by hacks that hate his guts. And to go along with singing the tune of Big Pharma and then watch them just stab her right in the back like they did. This is the glory of politics. It is a useless enterprise. And the only reason why we have to pay attention to it is because they are always intruding in our lives. They are always coming after and invading our freedoms and taking away our healthcare freedom, taking away our true solutions for pollution and clean energy, taking away our chances to have economic vitality, savings, wealth, innovation. These people are the party of the dark ages. They're trying to pull us into that dark winter of thousands of years ago. They want us to go back to human sacrifice. And I mean that. They want to sacrifice our neighbors for their gods of the green movement, the gods of Mother Gaia, the gods of whatever their little imagination they create. And how do they sacrifice? They don't do the old classic sacrifice. They do the bureaucratic sacrifice. They take you off of Twitter. They take you off of social media. They delete you. They take away your bank account, take away your access to use the credit merchant's account, so you can't get donations to defend yourself. They smear you with their PR firm media, their state-submitted PR firms for corporations. And then if they can't do that, they tax you, they fine you, and they put you in a cage if you run afoul of their state. Look what they did to Michael Flynn. They didn't do anything wrong. Biden's talking to all the people, and there's no certification. Remember in the last debate, he said, we will not declare ourselves a winner until it's been independently certified. It hasn't been independently certified, and yet the clown is out there saying he's the winner. It hasn't been independently certified. It's a liar. And you knew that because he's been in power for 50 freaking years. But only low information bigots were stupid enough to fall for his little charade. There's another story that interesting. Arizona, this is a national file. Arizona Democrat Secretary of State who runs elections called Trump supporters neo-Nazis. So if you think your enemy is a bunch of neo-Nazis, then you can hallucinate yourself to justify tampering with the electoral process. So you see how humans are? They conveniently lie themselves into justifying whatever vicious, disgusting stuff they want to do. So if they hallucinate themselves, oh, this is neo-Nazis. No, these are, I've seen these Trump rallies. I've observed them in media, and I see I've seen them up close and personal. I saw a very diverse crowd, very young crowd, and I would ask people why they were there. Getting a little journalistic on the ground look at things, and I'd ask them, "What are you here for? What do you believe in?" And I heard so much support for ending the endless wars. That's not what neo-Nazis believe in. I saw so much support for the First Step Act and the criminal justice reform under Trump that Barack Obama had the opportunity to do. When him and Biden had the power in 2008, they had the House, the Senate, they had the presidency. They did nothing because they're losers. They represent the status quo. And I saw the support for criminal justice reform. I saw the support for ending wars. I didn't see neo-Nazi stuff. Where I see corporate fascism is with this alliance between big tech, big banks, big war, big pharma, big neo-lib PR firm losers in the media outlets that are dying to win. They're dying to have control. And they know their game is up. So that's why they're being more open in their gaslighting, because they know there's a certain percentage of the public that will fall prey to the gullible, they're a little bit too gullible and will fall prey to their narratives. Here's another narrative. Dr. Fauci says coronavirus, quote, won't be a pandemic for much longer. Whoa. Oh, isn't that convenient? So it won't be a pandemic much longer. It's almost like, the narrative is going along and he's going along with the narrative that he wants. Guy he didn't even know whether we should wear masks or not. Who in the world even listens to this guy who has any intelligence about science? But the media and the DNC, they know better than most how powerful words are, especially if you repeat a word over and over again. So they say, we will listen to science. They don't know anything about science. They don't know anything about science. They can't tell you how mitochondria work. They don't know how the immune system works. They don't understand that the vast majority of these deaths are caused with the coronavirus with comorbidities, which are caused by the prevalence of vegetable oils, processed sugar, processed wheat, all these things that have been massively subsidized by the Democrats' wonderful state, federal government, that they've been massively subsidized corn and sugar and wheat and soybean oil, all this stuff, that we're eating massive percentages of vegetable oils, polyunsaturated fatty acids that we should not be eating, way beyond our ancestral limit of what you're supposed to be eating with vegetable oils with linoleic acid, which has caused the rise in heart disease. If you go back to the 1800s, you don't see the prevalence of cancer and heart disease and macular degeneration. You don't see these diseases as common. So they don't know anything about science. They can't tell you why these people died from coronavirus. They don't know anything about it. What they know is gaslighting you by intimidating you with words. They know how to say, listen to science. And they know that a certain amount of the population will say, yes, whatever the TV says is science. They don't understand. These are clowns that don't understand that Bill Nye, the science guy, is not a scientist. These people, he's the smartest scientist they've ever met. If you polled them, the base of these neo-lib losers, these corporatist hacks, they would believe that Bill Nye, the science guy, is a true scientist. He's not. And they wouldn't know, they wouldn't be able to tell you that, every real true science is going to be the one that's usually on the outside. Galileo will tell you what happens to him. Tesla will tell you what happens to him. Folks who actually do the real science that actually changes the world with real world influence and real world huge, amazing consequences for our wealth and our reality. They're the ones, when they arrive on the stage, they're always demonized by the scientific so-called scientific establishment. But the DNC and the media, they know how to get you with words. So they'll say Trump is ramming through his agenda when they're trying to paint your emotions against him pulling out of the war. And they'll say, listen to science, when they talk about pseudoscience gobbledygook that has no basis in reality, that doesn't understand anything about the immune system, doesn't understand anything about nutrition, doesn't understand anything about sunlight or any of the garbage that they're disregarding. But they know how to use words to bully people psychologically. And that's what they're doing. We'll be back with more in just a moment. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornosky, your host. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. We'll be back with more.
Hello, this is David Gornosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in Southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
David Gornosky here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
All right, this next question is for Caroline. Caroline, if you take the bus 60 miles to school at 5:30 a.m. and the bus is traveling at an average of 30 miles per hour, how are you going to get to your prenatal appointment and still make it to homeroom on time?
Some students are tackling more than just their schoolwork, which is why more than 30% of them aren't graduating. But you can give them the boost they need to make it through by visiting boostup.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. I see this tweet from Eric Weinstein, who is a mathematician and kind of a independent, self-styled independent liberal or progressive, not quite on the same narrative as the official DNC, neo-lib narrative. But he says, we all realize that left versus right is outdated, even as we use the terms. I wonder if a better division among public intellectuals and commentators isn't on script versus off script. If on script, it doesn't matter how often you're wrong. Off script, you can never be perfect enough. And when I look at that, it reminds me about why I think we're those of us who are independents, those of us who don't have a loyalty to either party, we have to be, intuitively sympathetic to the perspective that Donald Trump is providing. Because frankly, when we have a bunch of nanny state losers like Twitter and Facebook and all these censors and TV now cutting away from the president, look, I'm a sucker for a good scapegoat or a good underdog story. And I think most Americans are. And when I see 100% of the corporate dying old media going and circling the wagons and telling you nothing to see here, this president is done. We have a new horizon. The economy will be booming. The pandemic is no more soon, according to Dr. Fauci. Pfizer's happy. Everything's perfect. Just come on and join the party. I smell a horrible, stinky, nasty neolib rat. Okay? And I think you do too. That doesn't mean that we know all the answers and the details about what's really going on here. But if you're not intuitively suspicious, I don't know, you're very gullible then. I look at this, half of everything Donald Trump is tweeting now, it's got a little tag saying, this claim about election fraud is disputed. I mean, who wants to live in a world where these clowns, these losers, they don't know anything about mitochondria, they don't know anything about clean energy, they don't know anything about regulation, they don't know anything about tax, they don't know anything about monetary policy. These guys don't know anything. These people running Twitter, little algorithms or whatever they're using, it's still a human that's coding for the stupid that they're producing. But who wants a president that's never, with Joe Biden, you're never going to have a censored tweet from Joe Biden. Now, think about that. If you're a true progressive, if you're a true liberal, that means you distrust the establishment. You distrust, right? How in the world would you want a president who's, you can take it in a debate, nothing's ever going to be censored, nobody's ever going to pull away the camera to hide information that Biden suggests. He is so on script, it's boring, it's pathetic. And it's boring, but it's also dangerous. Because when someone's so on script, they hide the violence of what the state is doing. To you, your family, to your neighbor, to your economic future for your children. They hide the reality of the ugly violence that the state is perpetuating on people. So pardon me if we're going to have a president. Pardon me if I prefer one that's got every other tweet censored by a hack organization like Twitter. So what's the latest tweet that Donald Trump posted that the Twitter nannies want to tell you it's disputed? It's a quote from Chanel Rion of OANN. Report, Dominion deleted 2.7 million Trump votes nationwide. Data analysis finds 221,000 Pennsylvania votes switched from President Trump to Biden. 941,000 Trump votes deleted. States using Dominion voting systems switched 435,000 votes from Trump to Biden. Now, I haven't verified the facts of that, but I'm going to let you know that that tweet exists just because a bunch of neoliberal hacks with purple hair at Twitter want to act like they own you. So I'm going to say it anyways. I'm going to say that tweet and we'll find out the facts. But I know the facts are not with the liars like Twitter who pushed a xenophobic World War III threatening lie about the Russian hoax. They push that crap day in and day out. So they have no credibility. They have zero credibility. They have negative credibility. And that's why their ideas are going into the ash heap of history, and the future belongs to those of us who think for ourselves. I'm David Gronowski. We'll be back in just a moment. Godspeed.